guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be doing my March wrap up. I'm going to be going over all of the books that I read in the month of March. I actually had a pretty good reading month numbers wise. I got through 5.5 books, so last month it was only 3, so we're making improvements. Yeah, I feel like 5, 6 is kind of the average normally. In January I read 6. February was just a very weird month for me. It was kind of a flop, so hopefully we'll do 5 or 6 per month, but it doesn't really matter how much you read, honestly. I like to set these goals for myself so I'm able to reach my yearly goal, but obviously enjoying the books and having fun reading is the most important part. Anyways, with that being said, first of all, I'm going to go through all of the books that were on my March TBR, so if you haven't seen that video, go watch that video. It is like my TBR jar picks my March reads. So yeah, I'm gonna go through the books that were actually on my TBR. We have all of them here. So I had The House Across the Lake, Heartbreak, House Share, The Last Thing He Told Me, A Court of Thorns and Roses, The Final Gambit, and Powerless. I had those books kind of in my radar for the month of March. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get through all of the books that I read in the month of March. Alrighty, so I started off the month reading I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. This was obviously not on my TBR. I really wanted to listen to an audiobook, so I ended up just looking quick on there and I saw this one pop up right away. I've been wanting to read this for a super long time. I've had this for like over a year now. I grew up watching iCarly. I was always so interested in hearing her story because like she was a huge part of my childhood, watching iCarly, Sam and Cat. I did start this like a year ago when I first got it. I think I got through the first like 20 pages and I set it aside because I was still in school. I just didn't really have time to read. So anyways, I saw that it was on Spotify as an audiobook, so I ended up starting it and I started it from the beginning again. You guys, listening to the audiobook was so much more enjoyable than actually reading the physical book because Jeanette is actually the one who narrates the book. So you're hearing it directly from her perspective and her words, and just hearing how she says the things that happened to her throughout her childhood and acting. This goes throughout her life before she started acting, getting into acting, and then also like her life after she graduated high school. It's so sad. Obviously it tells a story about her mom as well, her mom's influence in her life. It's just heartbreaking to know like things that she was going through as she was having to put on a smile every single day at work. And I cannot recommend this book enough to really anyone, but also like if you did grow up watching Nickelodeon. This book is so good. I did not give it a rating. Obviously it's a memoir. I have no right to rate how someone's life is based on the story that they tell. I cannot recommend this book enough. It was really, really good. So the next book I read was the start to a series, and everyone has been telling me to read this series. I've had it on my shelves for a while, but I wanted to wait until this month specifically to actually get into it. I don't know why. I just wanted to like mentally prepare because it's a very long series. So I did start the acotar series. This is the first book, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This book was so interesting. I feel like there was such high expectations, like everyone's opinions was going into this. There was so much pressure going into this book just because so many people have raved about it. And yeah, I ended up buying it on my Kindle just because I didn't, this book is not floppy, it's very, very stiff, and I just don't love holding this type of book, so I bought it on my Kindle. I'm not even going to try to explain the premise of this book and what this book is about. If you want to look up a summary, go ahead and do it. I get so upset every time I try to explain it because it's just so complex and I can't do it well enough. So if you want to know what it's about, go watch that, or go watch my reading vlog that I read this book in. I explained it more in there. I personally did not love this first book as much as everyone had raved it or made it out to be like such an amazing book. I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. A lot of people say that the series gets better as you continue and keep going throughout the books, but yeah, so I only gave this 3.5 stars. It wasn't a favorite of mine. I am really excited to continue it because the ending was pretty shocking. I honestly did not expect that at all. So yeah, I'm starting the second one in the month of April, so if you want to see my thoughts on that, you'll have to subscribe. I think I'm going to do a reading vlog, not specifically on that book, but I will include it into a reading vlog, so if you're interested in that, yeah, stay tuned. The next book I read was The House Across the Lake. This is by Riley Sager. This tells a story about a woman. She is an actor, I believe. Her husband has just died like a year ago. She kind of went through a very big like mental spiral after this happened. Her mom has kind of put her on lockdown, so she's not in the face of the press or anything, and she has to stay at this house that is on a lake, and the lake is actually where her husband passed away. So he drowned in the water. Recently, there has been a couple that has moved into the house that's across the lake. So the story starts off with the main character saving the wife that is part of this couple from drowning in the water. She is like face down, and so the main character sees her. She goes out on her boat and she saves her. Once this happens, the main character really doesn't have anything to do. She just doesn't really have like a life out here. Obviously, she's usually acting. The main character starts to spy on this couple that has just moved into the house across the lake, because their house is like made of glass, so you can pretty much see in and see everything that's happening. She has these binoculars and she's spying on them every single night, and she starts to notice some pretty strange things happening with them. Yeah, she kind of takes matters into her own hands, trying to figure out what is going on. Yeah, the story goes from there. This book, if you watched my TBR jar video, was one that my cousin picked. She had recently read this book and she recommended it to me, so I read this based off of her recommendation, and I actually really enjoyed this book. It wasn't like anything spectacular, but I read it within 2 days. It was very suspenseful. It's very thrilling, honestly. I had chills a lot of the time throughout reading this book. I don't know what it was about it, but something about it was just very eerie. So if you enjoy those types of books, you would definitely enjoy this. Overall, I gave this 3.5 stars. I did guess a few of the plot twists throughout the book, so that's what made it not a super high rating, but overall it was still like a very engaging book. It had a very similar plot to another book that I've read previously in the past that is the same genre, so I think the fact that I've already seen it done before in a different book was why I also rated it not super highly. If it's your first time reading that kind of plot, you might like it a little bit more, but that's just my opinion on it. I would still recommend it. I thought it was a pretty good book. Next, I got into another audiobook. I started listening to Heartbreak House Share. This is by Emily Merrill. I've been talking about this book for a really long time. This book is also very stiff. I don't know what it is about it. Like, I just cannot hold on to these types of books. It's just very like I like flimsy books, and it's just so stiff. So that's also another reason why I wanted to listen to it. It is based out of the UK, so the narrator does have an accent, which kind of makes it a little bit harder to listen to, but it's still pretty interesting to hear it in that perspective. This tells a story about Flick. She is the main character, and she has just gotten out of a long-term relationship. She has to find a new place to live, and she's kind of just very lost and confused. She's in her early 20s, just trying to figure out her life after the breakup. She moves into this house share with 3 other girls. Flick is very nervous about like making new friends and just making this whole new life for herself. Obviously, the only life that she's known for the past however many years is with this guy. Also, there is a plot point in the story. She makes this 20s list, which is basically things that she wants to do while she's in her 20s. Let me see if I can actually find it in here. It says, start playing tennis matches in London again, learn how to make sourdough, dye my hair, live in a house share, start playing the piano again, travel around Italy, and blah blah blah. It goes on from there, but that kind of gives you an idea of like, it's basically just a bucket list, things that she wants to accomplish in her 20s. Yeah, this story was actually really interesting to listen to. I have personally been through something pretty similar to this. Like, I went through a breakup. I was living with the person and had to move out, and I ended up moving in with 3 other girls. So this was something that I was actually able to relate to a lot. That was like almost 2 years ago now, so I am very much like not in that state of my life anymore. But I think if I would have read this around that time, I would have been able to relate to it so much more, and I probably would have been a lot more emotional about it. The story did continue in a way that I wasn't necessarily expecting. There's another plot point that's involved with another character that I just wasn't really expecting. I don't know why. I just thought it would be more focused on finding yourself and just like living your life after a breakup, but it definitely took a different turn. So I don't know, I had very mixed thoughts about this. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't anything like spectacular. Like I said, I think I would have enjoyed it a little bit more like 2 years ago. But I give this 3 out of 5 stars. I'm glad I finally read it. I've just heard Rachel and Catherine talk about it so many times, and I was always like so eager to know what it was about. So yeah, I'm glad I finally got to it. Okay guys, the next book that I read in the month of March is my all-time favorite book. I ended up rereading it. So I reread Happy Place by Emily Henry. If you can tell, I finally went through and tabbed this book. So I ended up getting the paperback copy of it just because I prefer paperback over hardcover, and I was going to tab the original one that I have, the hardcover one, but this ended up coming out and I was like, well, I guess it's a perfect time to reread it and then also go through and tab everything. I talked about this a little bit in my day in my life vlog, that I reread it and kind of my thoughts and feelings on it, but I obviously want to explain in this video. I read this book originally about a year ago. I loved it. It was 5 stars. Like, I was able to relate to it so much, mainly the like relationship portion of it. Like, it just made me so emotional. I just remember reading it and there were so many times where I had to put it down just because like it was so heavy. Emily Henry always has this way of putting my thoughts into words on paper, and then when I read it I'm like, oh my gosh. To me it just felt crazy that someone else is going through exactly what I'm going through. For some reason it was very, very emotional when I first read it, and like I bawled my eyes out to it. When I reread it the second time, I am in such a different place in my life. Like, I am happily in a relationship and I just have very different views and just have realized so much about like my life, and like I've graduated college, I have a job, you know, like all of that stuff. So rereading it the second time was so enjoyable, but also in such a different way. I guess I didn't realize the first time I read this that Harriet struggles a lot with her job and just really struggling with, you know, wanting to go back to work and all of that. And if you've been watching my channel, you know that that's exactly how I feel about my job, and it just is not fulfilling to me. The fact that she talked about it so much in this book was why I was able to relate to it in such a different way than the first time around. I loved that aspect of it. Obviously I loved Harriet and Wynn's relationship and just the way that it all plays out. I don't know, I think it's a tie between this one and Into the Dark by Magnolia Parks. I think I love them both equally. I always said that this one was #1, but rereading it, like I think I relate to them both for very similar reasons. Harriet struggles a lot with her job, and then it also touches a lot on her family aspect, and I just feel like that's something I'm able to relate to a lot. So yeah, for that reason I just loved this book, and I just love them. Like, I love both of the books so much. They're both like 6-star reads for me, and I really want to reread them every single year. Like, just talking about it makes me feel in such a different way than any book has ever made me feel. Anyways, I love this book so much. Highly recommend, will always recommend, and I'm so excited for Emily Henry's new book to come out in April. The next book that I read was The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave. I've had this book for like a year and a half. I actually got this last Christmas from my parents. I asked for this because it was such a popular like book talk book and everyone had raved about it, and I did not know that it was a mystery thriller until I had actually read the synopsis like 2 months ago probably. That was quite interesting to me. I don't know, I always thought that it was a romance for some reason. Anyways, yeah, this is it's more of a mystery, I would say. I don't think it's thrilling at all. I was highly disappointed in this book. This tells a story about a woman. Her husband has just gone missing at the very start of the book. I guess I shouldn't say missing, he has run away from home and he has left his daughter behind, which is not the wife's actual daughter. It's like her stepdaughter, and they don't really have the best relationship. They embark on this journey to try to find where he fled off to, where he is, why he left, all of that. I actually did not enjoy this book hardly at all. Right from the start, I mentioned it, I was reading this in my day in my life vlog. I'd gotten like 40 pages into the book and I had already said like I don't know what it is about it. I don't like the writing. It seems very just not suspenseful at all. It was very blunt, very straightforward. Like, there was no depth at all to the writing. I'm the type of person who loves depth in a story. If it's not deep, I'm probably not going to like it, honestly. Right off the bat, I was not enjoying it, and I kept going, and obviously you kind of start to piece the things together and figure out why the dad went missing and all of that. I got to the very last 100 pages. I was trying to push through because I, again, was not enjoying it, and I had already figured out like what happened. I got to the last 50 pages. I literally set it down. I was like, I don't even care to find out how the story ends. I don't even want to read it anymore. I did end up looking up the ending and how it finished, which was just not even like closure at all. Yeah, I ended up giving this a 2 out of 5 stars. I'm sorry if you enjoy this book. I just did not enjoy the author's writing personally. I didn't think that there was any depth to it. Their mystery was just not put together well. The story honestly was, I feel like it could have been written in so many different ways. I don't even think that the story itself was very interesting. Like, the reason that he went missing was just so wild and weird. That's just my opinion. Please don't get mad at me for that, but 2 out of 5 stars for this one. All right, on to my last book. I'm actually not finished with it, but I did start it in the month of March. I started Powerless by Elsie Silver. I am about halfway, a little bit more than halfway through this book actually. I'm about 2/3 of the way through it. This is the 3rd book in the Chestnut Springs series. So this tells the story of Jasper, which is kind of like, he's not a brother, but he grew up with the Eaton brothers, so he's very much into the family, just not biological. Also in the story is Sloane, which is the Eaton brothers' cousin. It is a romance between them. They've been friends since they were little. Obviously they grew up together in kind of the same household, cousins, family, all of that. So this tells the story of them. He is a hockey player and she is a figure skater. I am enjoying it so far. It's definitely not like my favorite. I do love the Chestnut Springs series. I love the found family aspect of it, and for the most part I do really like the brothers. This book is very, very spicy, so yeah. That's the only thing kind of making me not love it a ton. I feel like it's more spicy than the other 2 books that I've already read in the series, but maybe I'm remembering them wrong. I don't really know. It just seems very intense. But overall, I do really like the story, even with the spice. Like, I don't hate spice. It's just not something I want to see dragged on for 15 pages. But yeah, I'm excited to continue the book and kind of see what my thoughts are on it and finish the series. I have 2 more books in the series after this. Yeah, overall I do really like the series. Like, I really like the found family, like I said. So that's my thoughts initially. The only book that I did not read that is on my TBR is The Final Gambit. This is the 3rd book in the Inheritance games, which I actually have started on audiobook. I've talked about this a lot of times in my videos. I started it on audiobook. I wasn't in love with it. I thought that maybe reading the physical book will actually help me to understand and be more into the book, but yeah, I don't really know if I will ever do that. I might try to listen to it again on audiobook and actually make sure that I'm, you know, listening and not drifting off into space, because that's what I did. I don't know if I'll get to it, but maybe someday. I'm really glad that I actually stuck to my TBR. I feel like I'm typically a very big mood reader, but I've been trying to really read the books that I have and that I've had for a long time, because I just don't want them to sit there for years and years and me never read them. So I didn't have a great reading month. I feel like a lot of the books were very average. I had 2 3.5, 1 3-star. Obviously, Happy Place was 6 stars. The last thing he told me was 2 stars. A very mid reading month, but that's okay. I don't know if that's because I haven't been mood reading necessarily, but I'm just happy to be getting through my physical TBR. So I think that is all for today's video. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you read any of these books, let me know if you felt the same that I did, if you felt differently, if they're your favorite books, all of that. Even if your opinions are different, like, obviously that's what reading is all about. Everyone takes things in a different perspective and feels differently about a book. I mean, even taking Happy Place, like, I felt so different about it a year ago, and like, obviously I loved it, but the way that I felt differently reading it again this year, like, I love them both times, but it was still very different, like, perspectives on it. So we're all in different points of our life, all like have different opinions, and that's okay. Anyways, with that being said, I want to hear your guys' opinions on these books and if you like them or didn't like them. I think that is all for today's video. I hope that you guys enjoyed. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.